Descending to rise, Dante's Inferno as a spiritual work. In a culture that often equates spirituality with transcendence, light, and serenity, Dante Alighieri's Inferno offers a radical counterpoint, a sacred descent into shadow. Written in the early 14th century as the first part of the Divine Comedy, Inferno is traditionally read as a theological vision of hell. But beneath its medieval cosmology lies a mythic map of the soul's journey through trauma, reckoning, and transformation. For those navigating the aftermath of betrayal, abuse, or indoctrination, Inferno becomes not a warning of eternal damnation, but a guide to spiritual awakening through the courageous act of witnessing. The Dark Wood, the crisis of identity. Dante's journey begins not in hell, but in confusion. The opening lines of Inferno are among the most quoted in literary history. Midway upon the journey of our life, I found myself within a forest dark, for the straightforward path had been lost. This dark wood is not merely a physical location, it is a psychic state. It represents the moment when inherited narratives collapse, when the seeker finds themselves disoriented, alienated, and alone. For survivors of familial or institutional control, this is the rupture, the realization that the path they were given leads not to freedom, but to erasure. The straightforward path is often the path of obedience, silence, and self-denial. To lose it is to begin the journey toward truth. Dante's crisis is existential. He is not condemned, he is lost. This distinction is crucial. The descent into hell is not a punishment, it is an initiation. It is the soul's refusal to remain asleep, the beginning of a journey that will require the naming of what has harmed, distorted, and betrayed. Descent as sacred work. Hell, in Dante's vision, is a structured realm of suffering, divided into 9 concentric circles, each representing a different category of sin. But to read Inferno as a literal map of divine retribution is to miss its deeper function. Each circle is not merely a punishment, it is a pattern. The souls Dante encounters are not just sinners, they are archetypes. They represent distortions of love, power, truth, and desire. They are mirrors of the systems, families, and institutions that perpetuate harm under the guise of order. The descent into hell is the descent into shadow. It is the spiritual work of discernment, the act of seeing clearly what has been hidden, normalized, or mythologized. Dante does not flinch. He walks among the damned, witnesses their suffering, and names their distortions. This is the sacred task of the survivor, to descend into the underworld of memory, to confront the ghosts of betrayal, and to reclaim the power of naming. Dante is not alone. He is guided by Virgil, the Roman poet who represents reason, logic, and protective wisdom. Virgil is not a savior, he is a companion. He does not rescue Dante from hell, he walks with him through it. For survivors, this archetype is essential. The Virgil figure may be a therapist, a friend, a mentor, or even an inner voice of clarity. It is the part of the psyche that refuses to be seduced by chaos, that holds the lantern in the dark. Naming the pattern, not the person. One of the most powerful aspects of Inferno is its symbolic precision. Dante's sinners are placed in hell not merely for their actions, but for the spiritual distortions those actions represent. The glutton, the fraud, the betrayer, these are not just individuals, they are embodiments of psychic and systemic dysfunction. To name them is to break their spell. This is not condemnation, it is clarity. Dante does not gloat over the suffering of the damned. He often weeps, recoils, or struggles to understand. His journey is not one of judgment, but of witnessing. He must see what has been done, what has been allowed, and what has been perpetuated. This is the spiritual ethic of descent. To name without becoming, to witness without absorbing, to discern without condemning. For survivors, this work is sacred. To name the abuse, the manipulation, the indoctrination is to reclaim the right to truth. It is to break the silence that systems of control depend on. It is to say, I see what was done. I see the pattern. I choose not to repeat it. Hell is a mirror. Dante's hell is not a foreign land, it is a mirror. It reflects the distortions of the soul, the betrayals of love, the perversions of truth. It is not a place we are sent to, it is a place we walk through when we choose to awaken. The descent into hell is the descent into the unconscious, the shadow, the repressed. It is the journey of the seeker, who refuses to remain blind. This mirror is painful. Dante often recoils from what he sees. He is overwhelmed, nauseated, terrified. But he does not turn back. He continues. This is the spiritual courage of Inferno, the refusal to look away. In a world that rewards silence and punishes truth-telling, Dante's descent is a rebellion. It says, you must go down before you rise. You must name what was done. You must walk through the fire, not to be burned but to be reborn. The ethics of witnessing. Dante's journey is not passive. He does not merely observe, he engages. He speaks to the damned, listens to their stories, asks questions. He bears witness. This is a radical act. In many spiritual traditions, witnessing is the first step toward healing. It is the act of presence, of attention, of refusal to abandon. But Dante's witnessing is not voyeuristic. He does not exploit the suffering of the damned. He does not use their stories for entertainment or validation. He listens with gravity, with sorrow, with discernment. This is the ethic of the spiritual seeker: to witness with integrity, to hold space without possession, to honor the truth without distortion. For survivors, this ethic is essential. To witness one's own trauma, or the trauma of others, requires boundaries, clarity, and compassion. It requires the refusal to bypass, the refusal to sanitize, the refusal to rush to redemption. It is the slow, sacred work of seeing. The frozen core, betrayal, and the deep state of the psyche. At the center of Dante's hell lies not fire, but ice. This inversion is profound. The deepest circle of hell is reserved for traitors, those who betray trust, love, and kinship. Here, Satan himself is frozen, trapped in a lake of ice, eternally chewing on the bodies of history's greatest betrayers. This image is not just theological, it is psychological. Betrayal is not hot, it is cold. It freezes the soul, numbs the heart, paralyzes the will. It is the wound that silences, isolates, and distorts. For survivors of generational abuse or institutional control, betrayal is often the core wound. It is the moment when love becomes manipulation, when safety becomes surveillance, when truth becomes taboo. Dante's frozen hell is a metaphor for the deep state of the psyche, the hidden mechanisms that govern behavior, belief, and identity. It is the realm of internalized control, of unconscious loyalty to systems that harm. To reach this core is to confront the architecture of betrayal. It is to see how the wound was structured, perpetuated, and mythologized. But Dante does not remain frozen. He climbs down Satan's body, passes through the center of the earth, and emerges on the other side. This is the paradox of descent, the way out is through. The only path to freedom is the path of witnessing, naming, and transformation. Toward purgatory and paradise. Dante's journey does not end in hell. It continues through purgatorio, the realm of integration, and into paradiso, the realm of alignment. But Inferno is the necessary first step. It is the descent that makes ascent possible. It is the confrontation with distortion that makes clarity possible. It is the naming of betrayal that makes love possible. For those reclaiming autonomy after trauma, Inferno is not a warning, it is a guide. It teaches that spiritual awakening is not found in denial, but in the courageous act of seeing. It teaches that discernment is sacred, that witnessing is transformative, that descent is not failure but initiation. Dante's journey is mythic, but it is also deeply personal. It is the journey of every soul that refuses to remain asleep. It is the journey of every survivor who chooses truth over silence. It is the journey of every seeker who walks through the fire to find the light. Reframing Inferno for the modern seeker. To reclaim Inferno as a spiritual work is to reclaim the power of myth. It is to see that ancient texts can speak to modern wounds. It is to understand that descent is not regression, it is reclamation. Dante's vision offers a framework for healing that honors complexity, shadow, and sovereignty. For mythic educators, spiritual guides, and survivors alike, Inferno becomes a ritual text. It can be used to structure healing journeys, to name patterns, to build discernment. Each circle of hell becomes a metaphor for a psychic distortion that must be witnessed and released. The descent becomes a protocol for transformation. This reframing does not require belief in a literal hell. It requires belief in the soul's capacity to walk through darkness without being consumed. It requires belief in the sacredness of naming, the power of attention, and the necessity of truth. It requires belief that the path to healing is not linear, but spiral, that we descend, confront, integrate, and rise. A mythic protocol for descent. Inspired by Dante's structure, We can imagine a contemporary ritual of descent, a mythic protocol for those seeking to reclaim autonomy after trauma or betrayal. This protocol is not prescriptive, it is evocative. It invites the seeker to move through stages of witnessing, naming, and transformation. 1. The dark wood, initiation. The seeker recognizes that the inherited path no longer serves. Confusion, disorientation, and rupture mark the beginning. This phase honors the courage to awaken. 2. The guide appears, companionship. A Virgil figure emerges, reason, clarity, protection. This may be internal or external. The guide does not rescue, they accompany. 3. The descent begins, witnessing. The seeker enters the underworld of memory. Each circle represents a pattern: denial, manipulation, betrayal, silence. The seeker witnesses without flinching. 4. Naming the pattern, discernment. The seeker names what was done, not to condemn but to clarify. This is the breaking of the spell, the severing of unconscious loyalty. 5. The frozen core, confronting betrayal. The seeker reaches the center, the place of deepest betrayal. This is the wound that shaped identity. It is witnessed, grieved, and released. 6. The ascent begins, integration. Having passed through the center, the seeker begins to rise. This is not escape, it is emergence. The descent has changed them. 7. The new path, reclamation. The seeker steps onto a new path, not inherited but chosen. They carry discernment, sovereignty, and the wisdom of descent. This protocol can be adapted for personal ritual, therapeutic practice, or mythic storytelling. It honors the complexity of healing. It refuses to bypass. It centers the seeker's autonomy. Inferno as sacred ground. Dante's Inferno is not a place of eternal punishment, it is sacred ground. It is the terrain of the soul's reckoning, the architecture of shadow, the mirror of distortion. It is the place where truth is born, not in light but in fire. For survivors of generational abuse, institutional betrayal, or cultic control, Inferno offers a mythic framework for transformation. It teaches that descent is not failure, it is initiation. It teaches that witnessing is sacred, that naming is powerful, that clarity is liberation. To walk through Inferno is to reclaim the right to see. To emerge from it is to reclaim the right to live as a reflection of inherited systems, but as a sovereign soul. In the end, Dante's journey is our own. It is the journey of every seeker who refuses to remain asleep. It is the journey of every survivor who chooses truth over silence. It is the journey of every soul who descends to rise.